Hey, grade 11s, biology students. So now, again, thank you very much for a lot of you who have actually watched the video and are asking questions. So this video is based on my second set of videos that is talking about the defense against infectious disease. That's kind of lesson three. Okay. Now, in this case, I'm going to answer some questions. I kind of noticed for the section that is about antibiotics and HIV, there seems to be a lot of questions. So let me go over that first. So, why would it help with a virus? Can you describe the difference? Let's basically talk about broad spectrum versus narrow spectrum antibiotics. Broad spectrum antibiotics essentially kills a large, very broad group of bacteria. So, for example, some of you may have heard that there's something called gram positive and gram negative bacteria. That's a way basically to classify bacteria into these two main groups. One of them have a cell wall, one of them has a membrane over the cell wall, if I remember correctly. So it's two broad groups. So broad spectrum antibiotic will basically be something along the they will just kill every single gram positive bacteria, or it might just kill every single gram negative bacteria. It's a very broad one. It just really kills every bacteria they can find, so to speak. Narrow spectrum bacteria will be a little bit more focused. Maybe we'll focus on killing one or two types of bacteria, one or two strain of certain bacteria. It won't be as broad of a broad. It doesn't have as wide of a range to kill. So in this case, why would a broad spectrum antibiotics help with a virus? It won't. It won't help directly with a virus, but sometimes doctors might prescribe those. Let's just say to prevent a bacterial complication. So just like influenza, influenza is caused by a virus, but sometimes some people will develop secondary complications. So basically, some people might develop bacterial pneumonia. So it's not like your body is like when a virus attacks and then if you're sick, it's not like, oh, this guy is off limit to all the other pathogen, so no one is allowed to touch him. No, it's uh, there might be other pathogens who are like, oh, this guy is weak, let's attack him. So in this case, have doctors prescribing a broad spectrum antibiotic. It could, I don't think they do it that much anymore. It's just to prevent a secondary infection. Okay, it prevent like a bacterial complication of a original disease. Okay, I think that answers both questions. Now, HIV and blood product. So I think these two questions: why is HIV worse than other type of virus? Why is it so hard to cure a disease? That question is twofold. So first of all, why is it so much worse? Is because HIV virus particularly attacks the CD4 helper T cell. Now, we only learned in this course one particular type of antibody immune response. We learned one type of specific immune response. There are other types of immune response too, but CD4 helper T cell, is kind of like almost like a central piece to it. So if you have a virus that predominantly attacks CD4 helper T cell, you do have a problem. Okay. Now, in terms of why is it so difficult to cure a disease like HIV or AIDS, the reason one of there are many reasons. One of the reason is because um, A, it attacks immune cells. B, when the virus comes in, HIV, it injects the genetic material, which is an RNA. It'll go through a process called reverse transcription. So we'll go from RNA to DNA, and then they will insert that viral DNA or DNA from the virus source into the host genome. So right now, so what happened is essentially your CD4 cell T cells would, after it got infected, might have some of the HIV DNA inside the T cell DNA, and sometimes it might flare up right away. Sometimes it might become activated right away and churning out viral particles. But there are a lot of times where it's like, yeah, it's just going to sit there dormant. And in the meanwhile, this T cell might keep on being reproduced. So you might have more and more T cells, which hiding inside its genome is HIV viral DNA. And then for some unknown reason, a particular trigger, which again, we don't know, these viral DNA all of a sudden becomes activated and start making HIV virus. Hence, all these T cells, which earlier was seems to be okay, and all of a sudden being killed and exploded with tons of HIV virus inside the system. So that's again dangerous. You have a situation where your viral DNA might sit in your body, again, like the coronavirus thing, no symptoms, you didn't know about it for a long time. And that could be another problem. Now, last but not least, which I mentioned before, HIV, um, and this is something that if you study immunology or microbiology immunology, you learn that in your third and fourth year is that the way they reproduce the viral particle, for some reason, for some reason, it actually um, mutates a lot more than it should. But at the same time, it hits a certain right spot where it mutates more, but than it should, but not to the point where it could cause error DNA. So in some ways, it mutates a lot without getting the DNA so damaged that it's useless. What this means is that you will constantly have new strain of HIV virus. When I was in university, which was a while back, there was about 5 to 10 different strain of virus of HIV virus. They're different. They're different from different different continents. I'm going to quickly check what how many strain there is right now by Google. Now, as you can see, I'm just looking at Wikipedia, the subtypes of HIV. As you can see, there are two main types of HIV. Okay, and HIV 1, HIV 2. HIV 1 is the one that we predominantly are responsible for the current AIDS epidemic, not epidemic, pandemic. So we are actually in a different pandemic too. Okay, we had the AIDS pandemic for a very long time now. Now, in this case, if you look at the group, HIV 1 has four different groups, but if you look at just the main group or the major group, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 different subtypes. Okay. And these subtypes are the ones that, as I said before, they are found in different geographical area. So, and that's also another hard part to find cure too, because, for example, which one is the one that's mostly North America? You have type subtype B that is in mostly in North America and Europe. The others are not so much North America. So in this case, you also compound it with the problem where to find the cure of drugs, because cure is expensive. Drug company have to pay a lot of money to go into it. So in this case, they will most likely they will develop they'll work or develop a cure for type B because that is a more affluent area. Now, in this case, if you have a cure for type B, it probably won't work or might not work for the other types, and then you continue to have this issue. So it's quite complicated. I think just that question itself could be another a video on its own. So I'm just going to pause here. What is meant by blood product when you're talking about HIV transmission? So blood product means blood donation, like plasma, um, anything that you donate, blood, bone marrow, all that kind of stuff. Okay. T cells activating B cells mean that it's activating B is activating cells to produce. Yes. Uh, yeah. So activating B cells means it is activating B cell to produce antibody or memory B cell. Yes, that's what it is. Could I review the first you try question? Sure, I can do that. I'll just um, pause here so I save time. Now, the first you try question is this case study question. So what I'm going to do it is I will try to put now. There's no answer key for this. However, I can make a separate video because to go over this, it will require quite a bit of time to do. So I will just make a separate video to just talk about this you try question. Okay, but I will strongly encourage you guys to do this you try question because it is important to practice on to have practice on database question. Okay. Now, blood clotting questions. So, what do you need to you need specific molecules in all the process? Yes, and only up to this diagram. Okay, so up to this diagram and this column, those are the things that you need to know. Okay, and I think the cognitive question, some of the cognitive question that I assigned to you guys need you to know these terms. So make sure you know them. There's no problem. Hemophilia caused by a problem within this process? Yes. Hemophilia is actually people who have hemophilia. There is something wrong with their clotting factor, and there is a specific clotting factor that is an issue. I believe you will learn more about it, at least normally when I teach it. Excuse me. I will teach it during the genetics unit. So in this sex-linked genetic trait. So I believe you'll probably learn it more next year when you learn about the genetics and clotting factor and hemophilia. But this is where it happens. The clotting factor is not working, or you don't have clotting factor. So usually, yes. So those people who have hemophilia, you need to they actually need to go to a hospital where they will inject clotting factor so that it will allow for blood to clot. So imagine, yeah, I used to have a student teacher. He was actually a dental surgeon for many years, and then he quit and becoming a teacher. And he told me, yeah, for when he was a dental surgeon, he when he does surgery on when he does dental work with hemophilia patients, he has to go and work in an he has to do the procedure in an OR just because. So in this case, it is quite a serious situation. And then, of course, imagine if you, with the current situation with the corona, that will be difficult. Band aid. Uh, what does it do? Now, this is a funny part because band aid, a lot of times it's just to close off the wound so you prevent foreign particles coming in. It's to close and seal the wound. Now, there's a lot of talk about, hey, there's a lot of talk, and this kind of stuff is more like third and fourth year university or sometimes nursing and med school. We're talking about wound healing and wound care. And actually, A wet band-aid covering a wound would actually takes a lot longer time to heal. So there are a lot of recommendation of either removing the band-aid or you have to change it and let it air out. So the process of airing it out, the oxygen increased amount of oxygen does allow the healing process to go faster. And so this is the role of the band-aid. If you want to talk about uh, if you want to talk about does it help you the bleeding to stop, that is where you need to apply direct pressure. So the direct pressure will help this mesh to form. And of course, you're pushing down on the blood artery, mean you're not allowing blood to come out. It's just a direct physical stopping. Define the term cascade. Yes. Basically, cascade is when something happened and caused the second and third steps. How much detail do you need to know? Yes, 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 because these four terms are up here. But the video that I provided or that I showed did go over a lot more detail than what you do need to know. So in this case, um, the video I just showed, that video I picked because it gives very good, clear details. You don't need to know every one thing, just need to know this one. Okay. So I think that just answers a lot of questions. Cuts, injury, get infected just by having an open wound and bacteria can land in, or foreign substance with microbes can get in. That's how infection can take place. Nope. No, you don't need a nervous system to send signal. It's automatic. Talk about the process of removing plaque in the artery at all. Not in this course. I know in not in this course, and I believe when we talk about the heart or the blood system, when we talk about the heart, I think we do talk about putting stents and angioplasm to how do you angioplasm to remove the to basically open up, yeah, to open up the clotted arteries. So I think that will be in the blood system unit lesson. Um, oh yeah, some venomous snake inhibit their blood clotting ability. Do you know? Do I know how it works? I know some. I don't remember. Is it the rattlesnake that causes one of those? Yeah, one of again. You have a lot of clotting factor here. So sometimes it's a clotting factor. Sometimes it's the other proteins. So some of the venom from now there are different venoms. Some venoms are attacking the nerve cells, but some which is attacking the or inhibiting the clotting factor. So again, a venomous snake that the venom inhibits the clotting factor or anything that interferes with this cascade, essentially the prey animal will bleed out. It will bleed out, become weaker and weaker, bleed out, and the snake can eat it. Could embolisms cause a stroke? Embolus cause a stroke to occur? Now, this is a very good question. I actually looked it up for you. So in this case, I looked up stroke. Now, there are two main types of stroke. Where am I? Yeah, two main type. One is deal with ischemic, so lack of blood flow. The other one is hemorrhaging due to bleeding. So something in your blood is some section of your blood is of your brain is bleeding, and so the ischemic one of the possibility is by obstruction by a blood clot forming locally. So yes, to answer your question, that as well as an embolus from elsewhere in the body. So now the tricky part is how did this clot go past the blood-brain barrier, which is usually the blood-brain barrier is a member. It's a physical barrier where it stops certain substances from the rest of blood system from the rest of the body to go into the brain. It's a way to protect the brain. So I don't know how that passed the blood brain barrier, but it does. So in this case, yes, embolus can cause a stroke. That's one of the many things that can cause. What does it mean when it says phagocytes secrete growth factor which encourage tissue growth? Now, this part here, again, went way more detailed. Do you need to know that part? No, it doesn't. And in this case here, the phagocytes and monocytes secrete. Yeah, basically, the phagocytes and the monocytes, those that one kind of leukocytes can secrete chemical signals, i.e., growth factors, which does cause the soft muscle tissue to grow. That's just what it does. Again, don't need to go into that. You just need to know as much as this part here. Okay. Now, I'm very glad that you guys are doing entering these questions here. It gives me a lot more chance to look things up and prepare and answer those questions. A lot of you are still not doing this, and I will be sending emails out. So make sure you get it done. Okay, I don't want you to fall behind. Okay, have a good day.